Before the Ranger Creed is recited by a formation of Rangers at any ceremony, you will always hear the narrator say this: "Will all Rangers, past and present, please join us as we recite the Ranger Creed." Every Ranger will stand, and as they say those 6 stanzas, they are transformed back to a time when they had the pleasure and the burden of this brotherhood. That feeling is hard to describe. However, it's one that never leaves you. It's a connection that spans the globe and can be reignited when you hear the phrase, "Hey Ranger, what battalion you from?" Amongst this formation, there are Rangers that stand out. They are legends of this elite organization, and when their names are spoken, people instantly have a story and for a moment relive it. Legends of the 75th podcast wants to capture that feeling and those stories. We want to ensure that these legends' triumphs and sacrifices never fade away. So sit back with your favorite adult beverage and listen to the stories from the legends of the 75th. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Legends of the 75th. Pretty excited. Actually got to spend some time this, it'll probably been over a month ago now with our guest today up in Ohio. Never thought I'd be spending some time in Ohio, but there we were, and we were having some fun with our buddy Eddie Chavez out on a lake and spending some time with a group called the Mince Group. And they're going to do some remarkable things, and we'll talk about them as well, and some of the stuff that they're doing to give back to the veteran community. And then also they want to try to kind of merge the veteran community with CEOs across their company and other companies as well, talking about leadership, talking about lessons learned. So as that kind of develops, we'll definitely talk that more on Legends and, kind of the collaboration that we're doing with them. Real quick, before I introduce Will, also head over to legendsofthe75th.com. Check out our swag. We got all kinds of new gear on there, some new shirts, some limited edition shirts, and some other stuff, as well as some collaboration affiliate codes, all different kinds of stuff. Head over there, check out the blog, check out the episodes. We're really putting a lot of work into trying to maximize all of the content and everything that's available on legendsofthe75th.com. So head over there. All right, enough from me, enough about that. So I have the honor of introducing William Hutson. So he enlisted in 1999, so about a year after me, no big deal. Kind of had an interesting journey. We'll talk about it, but ended up over at the 173rd, where he served from ammo bearer all the way till squad leader. Then he came to 375 after some trials and tribulations, which we'll dive into the episode, where he served as a team leader, squad leader, and mortar platoon sergeant before going over to RHQ to serve as a RASP1 NCIC. Going on to USASMA, the Sergeant Major Academy, and like we do in most of the episodes, we'll breeze through that. We'll just talk about how shitty it is, and then we'll move on with our lives. And eventually retiring. He has an ARCOM with V for Valor, and also a combat jump. So that was with 173rd, right? I'm making an assumption there. Okay, yeah, the timeline. So we'll definitely talk about that, because the 173rd's jump in northern Iraq is something interesting. We've had a few guests that have talked about that as well, not on Legends, but on other podcasts. So it was definitely interesting. But anyway, well, absolute honor not only to have you on the podcast, but to spend some time with you. A couple months ago, I know we probably ran into each other in the regiment, but we really didn't remember it. But it was great to get to know you.
For sure. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I'm just excited to be here, man. My time in the regiment was really, really special to me. It shaped a lot of who I am. Was honored to be able to walk along Giants for a small amount of time, and I really enjoyed my time there.
What I often ask is, when I read that introduction, sometimes it spurs like emotions or it spurs thoughts in people's mind. Was there anything that kind of came to mind for that?
Yeah, for sure. So, the biggest thing for me was I always wanted to be a part of something great. Just growing up, I had a really rough childhood. We were just dirt poor and had come from just kind of a shoddy background. I had a really abusive stepfather who just took all the world out on me on a regular basis for several years. And I was out on my own. I got my first place when I was 16 years old. And I just always longed and wanted to be a part of something great. One of my friends that I know that Josh Gamboa, we were friends since we were in the second grade. We both.
Oh, really? I didn't know that your friendship had went that far. Oh, no shit. Okay, yeah, I got some Josh Gamboa stories. We'll definitely have to dive into those. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we grew up dirt poor, both of us, and
right.
Our backgrounds are, we just our first apartment was together. Me and him and two other buddies had like a really crappy 2-bedroom apartment. We all worked at fast food joints. We were like 16 years old. One dude was 18, so we were able to get the apartment and the bills and everything put in his name. And we all just brought food home from Sonic and Pizza Hut and whatever place we were working at. We had like beer stains on the roof. It was
Of course.
yeah, but all the bills paid were like $350 a month, so we could afford it. We could walk to work from there. And like I said, I just wanted to always to be a part of something great. Josh ended up joining the Army 2 years before I did.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Because he was there when I got there, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, he came in '97, and when he left for the Army, I started working at a nightclub, bartending in Houston, and was just like drunken debauchery like all the time for like a solid 2 years of just like time traveling through life, getting nothing accomplished, and I got to a point where I was like, I really need to do something with my life. And, Josh would come back on leave. And I was like, man, you're doing so well and doing so great for yourself. I'd love to do what you're doing. And I joined the Army and tried to get an option 40 contract, but wasn't able to. And the funny story about that is Josh was friends with whoever the liaison was at Airborne School at the time. And he's like, man, don't worry about it. It's fine. He's like, just get an airborne contract. I'll talk to the liaison. You'll get picked up at Airborne School. I was like, sweet. Awesome. So I took the airborne contract on the 173rd in Italy. I went through basic training, got to airborne school. I get to airborne school, and they're like, who wants to volunteer for RIP? And I was like, me. And they're like, suck it. The liaison's on TDY for the next 3 weeks. And I was like, awesome.
Oh boy. And here we go. Right.
So, I mean, and I ended up going to the 173rd in Italy before the GWAT kicked off, and it was awesome. I had a great time out there, almost everybody from squad leader up through battalion commander had come from the Ranger Regiment. And that's kind of like where guys went to go take breaks before, the war kicked off. And I had a lot of great times, cool training, great leadership. So like I have nothing ill will to say about the 173rd. I love my time there. I had a great time. Got to do a lot of cool stuff going there as a single young guy with it's like I was out snowboarding in the Swiss Alps and, taking trains in every country in different directions. You go 4 hours in any direction on a train, you're in a different country and new experience, and had a lot of fun and had met some great mentors there. And then at my time there, I still like had this fire inside of me to go to the Ranger Regiment. And I actually.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Sorry. Oh, you're sorry. So I had like a fire inside of me still wanting to get to the Ranger Regiment. It's what I always wanted, as soon as I got there, I went through like pre-Ranger and did all the stuff for Ranger School, and I was still trying to go. I ended up meeting Josh right before 9/11. 275 was in Hohenfels or Grafenwehr, Germany. And
Josh was with us. Yeah. So I was up there as well. Okay.
I linked up with Josh while we were there, and he introduced me.
Was Josh a Mortarman? I can't remember.
Yeah, he was.
Okay. Yep. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And so I linked up with him, and we were hanging out. And I want to say Hugh Roberts was the battalion CSM at the time.
Yeah, it would have been him and Colonel Owens, our Lieutenant Colonel Owens. Yep. Yeah.
And so he introduced me to him, and he was like, I really want to get this guy to battalion. He's like, hey, you're good. He's like, as long as you get to Ranger School, you're good to go. And I was like, oh, you're just off Ranger School. So I got that covered. Went to Ranger School, and then, started putting my pack together, all that stuff, letters of recommendations, whatnot, and ended up going through after the fact, And so once I got back to the States, I got my packet in, got everything done, and then got back, finally got to go get my chance, I became a staff sergeant at that point because, it takes like 3.5, 4 years to become a staff sergeant in the Army. You know? And so I went through rope, and, that was probably one of the best training experiences I had to that point. You know what I mean?
Right.
Guys I think Hooten might have been the rope NCIC at the time. Had guys like Swift, Bird was the cadre. I know there's always guys who are genetically superior to everybody else who are working.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Train company, And so we were just getting, we were doing these 10-mile runs at Kit, going, doing the gate to gate run, doing all that stuff. And I was like, man, I don't know if I got a little more than I bargained for, and I was rubbing horse ligaments on my body that I got from the feed store to try to get through.
Yeah.
The way that I got ready to go to rope is I went to Houston and partied with Josh for 2 weeks straight,
What better? I mean, see, that's the beauty of being young now. You can do shit like that now. Now we do stuff like that. You
Like
like
super
forget the
reductive.
weekend, you know, like it's just done, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah, man.
Well, I definitely I want to come back and I want to talk a little bit about, you know, time in the 173rd, you know, coming to regiment and everything else. But I want to hop way back, and the reason is, you know, I think it's very, very important to talk about this piece is, you know, your childhood, you know, some of the trauma. And what I've actually started to say, and maybe that's because I'm trying to marginalize things, is like
Yeah,
I had like the right amount of trauma as a child. Like
yeah,
maybe more, and like it might have broke me and I'd be living a very, very different life, you know. But it was maybe just the right amount of trauma. It's probably super fucked up to think about it that way, but you know, it is what it is. But really, you know, not necessarily, you know, just talking about trauma to talk about trauma, but it's like this constant theme with, you know, special operations guys, that they had a ton of adversity that they had to come over at a young age, you know.
yeah,
And then I love the part that you said you just knew you wanted to be part of something. And, you know, and that being the kind of the catalyst for the military. Is there any kind of bridge there? Because, you know, I can imagine, you know, if you're anything like me, when I was going through things as a young man, young teenager and everything else, I was isolated in my own mind because of the things that I was going through. And I just didn't feel like I could connect with anybody. One, because I couldn't share what was really going on in my life. And
yeah,
two, I just didn't think anybody else was going through it.
yeah, for
You
sure.
know, so then therefore I wasn't part of anything. I didn't fall into any crowd or any clique or really have any substantial friendships, you know, because now we've learned years later that a true friend you share everything with, you know, they
Oh, for
know
sure. Yeah,
everything about you. Any
yeah.
kind of
So
cool. Yeah. Good.
yeah, for me, it was, you know, I just honestly, I didn't realize how terrible my family and my upbringing was until I got in the Army because everybody
Right.
in my orbit was going through the same thing, you
Right.
know. Uh, and you know, I didn't really get it until like I was, you know, basic training graduation. Like, oh, people's families come to this. There's stuff to do, you know, like all this stuff, you know, and I was just standing out there by
Right.
myself. But you know, I definitely, I mean, like there was so much going on. It was like just really hard to focus on anything good. And I just, you know, it definitely made me resilient and gave me the ability to compartmentalize things at a young age, which helped us be successful later on down the
Yeah.
road. Um, but yeah, I think it definitely shaped me who I am. You know, it wasn't all terrible, all bad all the time. You know, you know, I worked really hard when I was young. I did a lot of hard things, and I think that helped me to be really good at doing hard things as an adult. You know, like I don't think I ever got any kind of hazing or anything in the military that was could even shake a stick on anything I went through as a kid. You know, and so I feel like, you know, all of that part of it made it, you know, I felt like it was really easy. Like there's nothing you guys can say or do to me that
Yeah.
like is gonna affect
Yeah.
me at all. You know?
Yeah.
I'm a smart ass by nature anyways, and you know, and it's like
Yeah.
it's all gonna suck anyways. So I'm just gonna talk trash while you're pushing me at, you know,
Yeah. Well, I
just
remember saying that about like the drill sergeants. Like, you think that's screaming? Oh, come on, pussycat. Like, that ain't nothing. Yeah. I used to definitely I can relate. And you know, it's funny. A lot of guys that come from our backgrounds can relate with that.
yeah, for sure.
So, you
Well, and
know,
then later on,
uh,
when you know, I know we're going to get into this later, but with the medicine
yeah,
stuff, you know, sitting down with the
yeah, no,
therapist,
I definitely want to talk about that. Yeah.
you know, she's like, you know, like 85 to 90% of the dudes who come through this program all had the exact same childhood as you and
Mm,
upbringing, you know. So we're all and then you get put into an organization where you're with guys who are all from the same background, and it just, I don't know, I just think it makes the team tighter. You know, it helps. I don't know. I think all of that stuff is, you know, kind of like slightly divine intervention, for lack of a better term, to get us all out there and back home safely, you know.
yeah. I got a question for you. It's a little bit. It's not off topic, but I was listening to a podcast today. Actually, I was listening to it, and you know, the guy interviewing, it was the guest on the episode was a ranger, and you know, the host asked him, you know, do you think rangers are born or made? And the guest said, you know, he thought they were born, and I I don't know. My personal opinion is that's bullshit. They're
Yeah.
they're not born. Like you weren't born a warrior. You weren't born a ranger. Like I mean, okay, maybe there are individuals that are like maybe General McChrystal or something, or, Hooten, or, another guy, John Kuhn, that I'm thinking about. Maybe they were, but I don't know enough about their childhood to speak of that. I could make the argument that you're born into it. And what I mean is that your life that you live makes you conducive to living that kind of lifestyle. Like, and I don't want to say you're groomed for it, because that almost kind of makes it seem like, what we went through is a positive thing, but
for sure.
it goes back into everything you said, like resiliency, like all that stuff, compartmentalization. It just makes you attuned to be successful in the industry.
Well, and just doing hard things at a young age just makes life easier as you go. I do it with my kids. Both my kids train jiu-jitsu, and it's something about like getting on the mats and doing hard things and letting somebody try to choke the life out of you for an hour that just makes the rest of everything else a little bit easier.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That, I'm not who I am because I was a Ranger. I was a Ranger because of who I am.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, like all the hard things that we went through as a child, and working hard and being on your own and being independent and making decisions and critical thinking, all those things are shaped from like childhood up to adulthood, and you just sharpen it as you go along.
Yeah, no, and I want to talk more about, your kids, and, dive into that, because there's so many great conversations to have, in there. But it was just to add something to that, my daughter recently, we were talking about work. My daughter, she's worked, for over a year. She's at a job. She juggles that. She juggles school. She juggles, the homestead, doing all that stuff. And she was talking about her friends and what they were complaining about and what they were talking about. And she's like, is this what like kids really actually talk about? And I'm like, yeah, because that's the problems they're facing. She's like, they're so mundane. Like, there's just, who cares? Like, who cares about that shit? And I'm like, that's because of how you're being raised, and the adversity, the right kind of adversity, not traumatic adversity, is being put into your wheelhouse.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and I know there's so much to talk about your kids. Your whole family's going through, very trying times right now. But let's save that for a little bit and dive into it. So, hopping back, when you finally made it to Ranger Regiment, you had a long journey. There was a long route there. What was that like? Walking through the gates for the first time.
Oh, man, humbling for sure, intimidating. I didn't really know, like being an import is like a dirty word,
Yeah, I know.
coming from outside the regiment. And that's what I always thought. And I think that's what almost everyone outside of the organization thinks until you get there. At the end of the day, if you show up, you're humble, you're squared away, you learn quickly, and you get up and you start getting after it. Nobody even notices, the platoons are all doing different things inside the company. The companies are doing different things inside the battalion. And the truth is like, you can be in the same battalion with a guy for 6 years and never even talk to him,
Yeah.
It's not,
it's true.
due to anything other than you're all training in different areas and going different places and doing different stuff and deployed different areas. And so like, I was definitely, I was taken back for sure. I was really nervous that, hey, I've got a lot of catching up to do. I know I've only been in the Army for a few years, but these guys have been getting after a lot more than I have. I'd already deployed to combat and all that stuff, but not at the level that, we were doing. And, just the ability to make decisions at the lowest level, that stuff doesn't happen in the regular Army.
No, it does not.
Like, you have squad leaders doing things that like company commanders are doing. And, like it's, the whole, with the ground force commanders and PL is doing that job, and XOs and company commanders doing stuff that battalion commanders would do outside of the regiment. It's a amazing organization. And that's why. It's because you're letting the people who are where the rubber meets road, making the decisions at the lowest level, and everyone's better because of it.
Yeah.
And you're empowering your junior leaders. That is so hard to do outside of the Ranger Regiment.
I know.
And that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And there's just something too about like having a 3-time volunteer. They're just different. Ranger privates are different than privates anywhere else in the Army.
They absolutely
when you walk in the back of the company, you're like, give me 5 dudes. And they're like fist fighting each other to be the first one up there. You do the same thing in a regular company call off outside of the regiment.
Yeah.
People are just like, pick up brooms, start sweeping. They'll turn around, like, oh, you know what you're looking for. It's just different feeling.
Yeah. They'll, you like walk into like one of the AOs and they'll like avoid eye contact because they don't want to say at ease. You're like,
Yeah, for sure.
dude, this is like a basic like military thing. You're
Yeah,
like, what the hell, man? Like, is it really, it's just a respect thing. Like, it's just a discipline thing. But yeah, it was definitely a culture shock, I will say, doing the reverse. Growing up in Ranger Regiment, and then really my first time spending, in Ranger Regiment, outside of Ranger Regiment, was as a squadron CSM, and it was
yeah,
like, oh shit, is this really what it's like? Holy cow! Now,
yeah,
because you operate around them, you're doing stuff around them, but you don't see the day to day,
yeah, for sure.
and especially like anytime you're working with them, they see the Ranger and, they're going to treat you differently and they're going to look
Yeah,
at
for
you
sure.
differently and they're going to react to you differently, so. Yeah. Well, okay. So I want to dive into that a little bit more, but before we do, we're going to break real quick. So, hey, everybody, thank you for tuning in. If you want to hear the rest of the episode with Will and his journey, not only within the 75th, we're also going to talk about his time in the 173rd, what he's doing now, his transition out of the military, and, the transition struggles and some of the family dynamics that he's got going on currently. Definitely consider becoming an exclusive member so you can listen to the rest of the episode. We got a lot of great content, not only with this episode, but, I think we've got like 85, 86 other episodes. So consider becoming, one of our tier structured members and, dive into all those other episodes and all the other great content that we got out there.